What's going on, guys? So today we're going to go ahead and jump straight into it. We're going to be talking about illustration rares and SIRs from the Scarlet Violet era and why I think right now is maybe a really good opportunity. So this video isn't about cards that are in a certain price point. This video isn't about cards that I think are going to make you rich. This video is about cards that I think are beautiful and deserve a little bit of love, and I think right now is probably a decent time in comparison to all the craziness that's been going on lately. Maybe a good time to snag some of these cards up. So if we look, I've talked about Modern. It's probably been a little repetitive lately, but there's this whole thing of like trying to time the market. And sometimes you just get that gut feeling or you feel lucky. And right now I feel lucky to be able to shop for some of these cards and get below market pricing. I'm telling you guys, if you look hard enough, there are so many examples. Like, people want to be really stiff. They want to be really firm on, their cards' values. But at the same time, a lot of these modern cards, they're not unique. There's a lot of them out there, and it's not to dog Modern, right? I'm not trying to trash talk Modern. I'm just saying that there's plenty of options out there. So if like a deal doesn't work with the seller, or even myself, if you send me an offer and I don't accept it and you decline my offer, big deal. There's a million other copies out there that you can go find, even if I'm holding out on a price, or if a seller that I'm trying to buy from is holding out on a price. I don't take it personally. Honestly, with Modern, there's an endless amount of deals and opportunity, and I would highly recommend it. And these are some cards that I recently replaced. I have a couple of these in 8s and 9s that I sent off for grading, and I didn't do so hot on that submission. So I've kind of just had these on display and just enjoying them, because it's going to be a long time until anyone is really hunting and searching PSA 9, PSA 8 illustrations, right? There's so many of them out there. It's kind of like you either go gem mint or you go home. You're going to go one or the other with Modern, and a lot of people are just going straight for PSA 10, and it makes perfect sense. There's a lot of these out there. The most special copies are going to be, the pristine copies, the black label copies, the PSA 10 copies. Nothing against getting the lower grades. There's actually a lot of value there too, right? The fact that a PSA 9 copy of these cards is nearly the exact same price as the raw card price, it kind of makes it always made sense to me, like, to buy PSA 9, because you're paying the raw card price, and it's already graded. It takes all of that risk and the protection that you get from having the card encased. So I think there's a lot of value there. But today, we are talking about illustrations. I see a lot of illustrations hitting the market, and here's a trend that I see, right? This is just my opinion, just my rant. I do want to say these were in the thumbnail, so I think that the Pidgeotto is one of the most beautiful. The Pidgeot as well, and the Pidgey's nice too, but for whatever reason, the Pidgeotto to me just really stands out. I think this card is maybe one of my favorite Obsidian Flames cards. There's a couple other illustrations. The Scizor illustration is sick. The Larvitar, of course, the Charizard that pretty much I feel like everybody likes. I'm not the biggest fan of the Terra Crown Charizard, but maybe it'll grow on me. That card could be super iconic down the road. But all that to say, I think the Pidgeotto is sick. I just picked up a Pidgeotto last night for, I think, $70. Guys, so relative to just a couple weeks ago, a lot of these cards were over $100, $120, $130, $140, $150, $200, $300. Illustration rares were going on a wild rampage, right? And so comparatively, I look back now and I'm like, the price is nearly half on a lot of these cards, or it's, 70% or 60% of what it was before. The Charmander, for example, this Charmander was hitting its stride. I think it was hitting like 250, maybe 300, maybe even a little more than that at the absolute peak. I've graded so many of these Charmanders. You guys know we opened, or if you don't know, we opened a ton of 151 on this channel. We didn't have any luck. None of them graded a 10, which really sucks, and maybe it's a lesson that I should be learning from, that you shouldn't just send off everything you got. But I was really excited to see all of the pack fresh cards that I'd pulled and to see how they would have done. And it does hit a little bit different when you pull the card yourself, you opened it yourself, you graded it yourself, it kind of hits different. So that was kind of my goal. Now, I will say that I did pull and grade every single one of the big three, the Venusaur, Blastoise, and Charizard from 151. But all in all, illustrations-wise, and I paid $200 for this Charmander, which I think was a really, really decent price. I think all in all right now, it's a pretty good time to be buying these cards. I really do. And I think, you know, there's two schools of thought here in terms of modern and like populations rising and these cards being less valuable as the pops go up. A lot of people, I think, probably want to believe that the pops are going to rise. There's going to be so many more PSA 10s hitting the market. And while I agree with that big time, you know, especially for some bigger cards like, you know, the Moonbreon, you know, we had that. It's a perfect example. There's like, what, 30,000 now probably in a PSA 10. But the card is still very high value, very popular. Some cards, I don't think PSA is going to try and pop control because I think that they're very popular and they want people, they, for the most part, want to please people. And I think that the bigger cards are the ones that they're going to please people on. But stuff that's more niche, like these illustration rares, I really think that there's going to be like, I don't know, maybe it just sounds like gibberish, but I think there's going to be some kind of pop control on some of these cards. We're already seeing that like 1 in 4 of them, or 1 in 3 of them, or 1 in 5 of them in some of the cases. Like the Pidgeotto, I think it's like 1 in 4, 1 in 4, 1 in 3 maybe, get a 10. It's like that now. Will it be like that in another couple of months, right? I have this theory, you know, a speculation more or less that PSA is going to be pop controlling a lot of modern cards moving forward. As the next generations come out, there's going to be a ton of those cards hitting the market, and these cards are going to be harder to find in PSA 10. I think that PSA is just going to be giving out 8s and 9s just to pop control. I honestly believe that. They're so backed up. There's so many cards being submitted. They're either going to go one or two ways about it. Either the pops are going to go up like crazy and these card values are going to go down. I could be wrong here, guys. I could be wrong telling you I think right now is maybe a good time to buy these illustrations, right? You know, you could also buy the cards raw and they're way, way cheaper. But for me, you know, I'm building my graded collection. So for people that want to build up their graded card collection, this is a video that might be helpful for you. Could it be a good time to buy these cards? For me, I'm going to say yes. I think the price has come down low enough on a lot of these cards that I respect what people are trying to get for them. And honestly, me, myself, if this Pidgeotto hit a 10, there's no way I would sell it for 70 bucks. There's just no way. I think this card is way too beautiful to sell for that kind of price point. It just means too much to me. And everything in general with inflation, money is just way less valuable than it's ever been, right? So I think it is also kind of natural that not just as an investment, Pokemon cards are going to rise in value, but also just with inflation, Pokemon cards are going to rise in value. That's going to be kind of inevitable, I feel like. And I just feel like anything under $100 for really many of the illustration rares below $100 in a PSA 10, I think especially the ones that are more popular, that are you know, have a bigger fan base, right? For me, I think that the Pidgey line in Obsidian Flames is absolutely breathtaking. I love it. Was it something that I was going to hyper fixate on right when it came out? No. You know, I pretty much have let every single modern set do its thing, release, come out, and then I go after the cards later. The only set that I haven't done that with was Surging Sparks. I did Surging Sparks. I bought the Latias pretty much immediately, and I way overpaid on it for like 500 bucks. Now you can get the Latias for like 400, which I think, guys, this isn't just about illustrations. We're also talking about SIRs here. A lot of SIRs are coming down in price. And I honestly think the Latias for 400 is a really good price, and the Salamence EX for 400 is a really good price. I have literally contemplated myself buying more copies of those cards because I respect them. I love the art. I think they're beautiful. And I do think that there's going to be some pop controlling going on at PSA down the road. Give it another couple months. You're going to see some of these cards start to become more scarce on the market. Right now, there's so many options. The general consensus is that modern is trending down, which means a lot of people that are, you know, in this echo chamber of YouTube are going to be saying that modern is going downhill. It's like, for me, that is the alarm sounding to buy these cards, right? That, to me, says that this is a good time to buy. You know, when sealed product is going up and exploding, that, to me, says, hey, good time to get rid of that stuff, to sell that stuff. Vintage, even. I love my vintage cards. I'm not selling really anything of my vintage collection. But if I was, right now would be the time I would be selling off all my vintage stuff, because right now the vintage market is booming. You know, buy low, sell high, super traditional. Supply and demand is going to play a big part here, but overall, I think the supply of these cards is not going to exponentially increase the way that it probably should, right? Because I think a lot of us think, like, deep down, like, we're like, these cards are so beautiful, but there's going to be so many of them hitting the market. Wrong. I'm going to contest that and speculate that I think PSA will pop control a lot of these cards just to keep them special and low pop, and to maybe even protect, you know, some of their brand image, right? If everybody got PSA 10s, I honestly think, one, the value would go down. People would go to the next thing that's more special. I think that's a big reason that a lot of people are moving towards CGC right now. Flame me all you want. You know, I am not a PSA fanboy. Most of my collection is PSA, but I see the value in CGC. The turnaround value is great. The slabs look great. They've had their fraud and their debacle with, you know, the playtest cards recently. That was the biggest deal where just CGC shat the bed. CGC pooped the bed, okay? You know, that was a big issue that I thought was going to hold them back, but nope. People are still grading with CGC more than ever. You're seeing a lot of big sellers grading with them. I don't think they really care about the quality, though. I don't think they care about the brand. I think they're just trying to pump out these grades, and they're trying to move stuff as quickly as possible. I do think a lot of people in the CGC world, particularly vendors and sellers, are with CGC for the money. It is a money move. PSA really isn't a money move. It takes forever to get your cards back, which makes me feel like PSA is more of the collector's choice. There is, you know, a huge premium on cards that are PSA 10, but also PSA is known for pop controlling. They've done it with vintage, and I believe because I've got plenty of vintage cards that are 9s that I think could have been 10s in another life. But anyways, what I think is going to happen with SIRs and illustrations is right now they're down. Right now, people just feel weird about the market. It's a rocky market right now. But I really feel like there are a few times in this hobby where you get that kind of, that clear as day buy signal. And for me, the alarm is going off. Right now, we're trying to save money. I'm trying to not spend any money at all. I already went back on that a day ago, and I spent $200 plus at the card shop, and I bought a bunch of stuff, one of which already sold today. We already sold the Expedition War Turtle. It sold so fast, which is awesome because I literally just bought that the other day and have already gotten some of my return back on it, which makes up $30 out of 200. After fees, I'm looking at, you know, $25, $26, which makes up about 1/10 of everything I spent yesterday. I sold one of those cards, so I feel good about that. Something light, but also it goes to show that those e-reader cards, those vintage e-reader cards, they just move, guys. They move, particularly the reverses. And that card was a beautiful card, man. I did not want to let go of that War Turtle. And I didn't even have it in my binder. It was only after I had, you know, sold it that I realized I don't even have that one in my own binder. So I should have kept that copy. But off to a new home. Hope it's enjoyed. Anyways, SIRs I think are, you know, in a rocky place right now. And this includes alt arts from Sword and Shield. Alt arts from Sword and Shield are kind of at a good buy price right now. We don't know if they're gonna pop control, you know, these cards moving forward. Hi, baby. Wow, your dress is absurdly beautiful. Wow, you are just such a princess. My goodness gracious. This girl is such a princess. Yeah? Say hi, everyone. I'm a pretty princess.
I'm a pretty princess.
Yes, you are, and no one will deny. Yeah?
Bye.
Bye. I love you. As always, it's a nice thing to see the kids pop in, even for a little bit. Okay. SIRs right now from Scarlet and Violet are trending down. Could be a good time to be scoping those out. But illustrations really are what I want to focus on because I think a lot of people are missing the boat right now. These cards are super cheap raw. Okay, here's what I think is going to happen. Tons of people are going to buy up illustrations because they're cheap right now. This is an obvious play, right? Illustrations are cheap. Buy them up, grade them. You could create exponentially more value. The problem with that, though, is that I think PSA is going to get tougher and tougher with grading a lot of these illustration cards because there's so many of them out there. There's no other way to keep the cards special or keep the populations down. So I really think buying the PSA 10s right now could be a smart move. It's what I'm doing. I said I wasn't going to be buying anything anytime soon, but when the market makes sense and the hobby starts to make sense again to me, that's when I kind of jump back into it. Vintage still just doesn't really make sense to me, so I'm still holding off, right? I know those cards are amazing. I know they deserve their time to shine in the spotlight, but that also means having to be realistic with my budget and saving money and, prioritizing our family goals of moving into a bigger home and kind of stepping back and saying, okay, I could buy those right now in this market, but those are going crazy right now and they may come back down a little bit. So why don't we pivot here and do what I haven't done in a while, which is focus on illustration rares. I completed a lot of my Sword and Shield and Sun and Moon alt arts, so now let's focus on illustration rares because Sun and Moon alt arts and Sword and Shield alt arts, both of those are still fairly steady and still kind of pricey, whereas a lot of illustrations now you can get for $50 to $70, $80, and for me that $45 to $80 price range for most illustrations out there in PSA 10, I know a lot of them are going to be worth a lot more, right? Like the Charmander is going to be worth more, the Squirtle, Bulbasaur. But Bulbasaur is a great example. Bulbasaur, I think, was up there past 200 or 220-ish, I think, for a while there. I just picked up Bulbasaur last night for 140. Now, that's not a crazy deal. There was one that sold from Canada that went for, I think Slab Shark sold it. It was like 128, and they had $10 shipping, which is kind of weird. But 138 all in, right? These prices are coming down, guys. These prices are coming down right now, and I'm really excited about it. But I snagged up that Bulbasaur. I graded my Ivysaur and Venusaur at 10. So now I officially have the Bulbasaur, the Ivysaur, and the Venusaur all in PSA 10. So right now it's just a fun time where I can kind of complete some of these smaller goals that I had. Yeah, I picked up Pidgeotto. I'm looking at Larvitar. I'm looking at Squirtle. I'm looking at Wartortle. I need both of those. I have Charmander now, so now I'm going to need Charmeleon. But all in all, last night I spent like $480, $470, and I got like several slabs, all in PSA 10. That's a pretty amazing thing to be able to pick up a couple of those cards, that are lower pop in PSA 10, that are tougher to grade. And I think the PSA is going to continue being tough on those cards. So while there's so much supply out there, I think PSA is just going to pull a typical PSA and they're going to be like, nope, we're going to swap this away, swap that away. Let's keep the population, sub 1,000 PSA 10s when there will be 10,000 of the cards total graded. So now, again, for some of the more popular cards like Charmander, Squirtle, any of the big three, there's, 20,000 of those cards graded, 10,000 of them graded. There's way more than some of the other illustrations. For cards that are widely known, very popular, iconic characters, I don't think PSA is going to pop control as much. Say what you want, but I have my own theories and speculations based on what I'm seeing in the market, based on what I'm just observing myself as a collector. And it seems like the really, really popular Pokemon, a lot of the times they don't get pop controlled as much as some of the more niche illustration cards that also have quality control issues. Like some cards just genuinely have terrible quality control, and that's why they're so tough to grade. In other cases, it seems like it's a little bit of PSA pop controlling. And that's been kind of a conspiracy for a long time. But let me know, guys, in the comments, do you think that PSA is going to be pop controlling modern illustration cards, or do you think that they're just going to skyrocket in population? I'm wrong. The market is going to continue to tank on these cards, and it's going to get to a point where you can get a PSA 10 illustration for 40, 50 bucks all day. If that's what you think, let me know in the comments, but I just don't see it. These cards are actually kind of getting too cheap in PSA 10, right? These are PSA 10 Gem Mint copies. It's a special thing when you get a gem mint copy back from grading. And so while I haven't been the luckiest, it's even more convincing for me. There's even more prospect in buying other people's PSA 10s that they're willing to negotiate on, because I've graded some of these cards and I've had no luck grading them. So it's kind of nice to be able to get a deal on them right now. And so, guys, I'm telling you, these are my thoughts. I have no motive or incentive here. I'm just doing my thing as a collector, and we're trying to keep it real on this channel. We're trying to keep it as real as possible on this channel. And, you know, I'm willing to hear people's takes, and whether if they think I'm wrong on this mindset, or, you know, they think that the market will continue trending lower. I just can't see it, right? Sometimes it gets to a point where these cards, they're at the rock bottom, in my opinion. And I almost maybe even feel that way about Sword and Shield. Sun and Moon, some of those cards are still really up there. They're still pricey. Mainly the Darkrai Umbreon being like $1,300, $1,400, and the Espeon Deoxys being like $800, $900 right now. Those are really, really pricey for how modern they are. And then, of course, the Latios being like a $6K card right now. That I'm staying away from. I'm hoping I will get a chance at that card later down the road. Who knows what's going to happen in this hobby. But one thing I do know is that these cards, the artwork is beautiful. While we're not a channel that mainly pumps cards like this, I think you guys can agree the color, that art style. It's also certain illustrations. It's the ones that are hand-drawn that have kind of a vintage feel to them. These are the cards that I probably like the most, right? Like, I like this Pidgeotto probably more than most of the illustrations out there. Why did it take me so long to pick up some of these cards? Because it just wasn't a priority, and vintage was still somewhat affordable, and these cards were all, you know, everybody was talking about this stuff, so there was a time where everyone was, everyone was hell-bent on collecting modern and hyping up modern and pumping up modern and Ghastly. Let's pump Ghastly and Persian to the moon and Magikarp. And they have some legitimate claims to how hard it is to grade some of those cards, right? The Magikarp's actually pretty tough. But at the same time, a lot of it was pumping. And I stay away when I feel like everybody is doing the same thing. Right now, no one really is talking about these illustration rares unless they're talking about just cheap cards to buy, right? I am telling you right now that if you're a PSA 10 collector, if you collect graded cards, for your graded collection, maybe this, you know, for people collecting raw cards, this doesn't apply as much. The market's dead. There's no point to try and buy and flip modern, whatever. This is not about that. This is about building a collection and curating a very, you know, gem mint, perfect collection. Perfect, so to speak. Even PSA 10 isn't perfect. But yeah, I think these cards are beautiful. I think in gem mint, a lot of them sub $200, buy. You know, a lot of them sub $100, buy. You guys are going to be the ones to figure that out. The more iconic ones, like the starters, like Charmander, you know, more iconic ones like that, the Slowpoke from Scarlet Violet base, or the Drowsy from Scarlet Violet base. You know, a lot of those are coming down, and I'm cooling off on those. I think the really expensive ones you should try and grade yourself. And maybe we can see as time goes on, will some of those pops rise and those cards be, you know, less of, you know, a scarcity. But I do think the vast amount of IRs are going to be sub $100. And I think it's kind of foolish to think that they're going to go down to $40, $50 in PSA 10 across the board. But a lot of them are under $100, $60, $70, $80. Those price points to me are no-brainer price points. Anyways, I'm definitely going to be looking for stuff. I'm telling you guys, I've been getting some really good below-market deals, and I think you can too. And I think this is a good time to be competitively hunting these cards because, you know, I got to be honest, guys. If someone, you know, says they can't do a price, it's not a big deal. There's another copy waiting for me. So it really is, the power is in the buyer's hands right now. It is a buyer's market environment, I think, for a lot of these illustration rares right now. I mean, just remember, you know, just the other day, Drowsy was a $500, $700, $1,000 card. It's $300 right now. These cards have tanked. And I actually have 2 Drowsies that are in my recent 3rd submission, which is now finally going into assembly. Guys, we will be getting a massive 115 card submission back in about 2 weeks. So I'm really excited about that. And yeah, stay tuned. Let me know what you guys thought about this video. It feels good to be consistently making videos and ranting, but God, I gotta make these videos shorter or something. Anyways, peace out, guys. Let me know what illustrations you are hunting after. Let me know what the most beautiful illustrations you think are. Just give me your opinions. You might even convince me to buy into another card that I hadn't even thought twice about. We didn't even mention some of the promos, right? The Mewtwo promo from 151 and the Mew promo from 151 with the Sunset. There's a lot of cards that are kind of back to being slept on that I think people should maybe take a look at. I know I didn't mention them all here, but you guys kind of get what I'm saying, okay? Just look up illustration PSA 10 on eBay. Have fun. You're welcome. Peace.